Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy is dead.
Today, Nerdarchy gets consumed as we discuss consumable magic items. Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Alright, so we got a request in through one of the comments on the videos.
Yes, we did.
About, let's see what Nerdarchy says about consumables.
What do we think about consumables? So there's a couple things about this. One, they're great low-level magic items that you can incorporate into your game because there's no long-lasting effects.
Right.
Go ahead.
And it doesn't actually matter, like, yes, you can put them in low level, but there are things that you can sprinkle in throughout all levels of adventuring, and you don't have to worry about balance. All right, maybe on one encounter or two, if you really push things, the party's going to have an easier time because they've got access to a consumable that has a duration or whatever have you. But once it's gone, it's gone. I know as a player, like, those things are like last ditch, like, all right, I got to hold on to this for just the right moment. And they wind up just sitting there because I'm always afraid to use them because once you use them, they're gone.
Well, what if I've wasted it? Oh, no. So there's scrolls, there's potions, there's a plethora of wondrous items that are consumables.
Yep.
In there is also like oils and pigments and qualls, token feathers. They all fall under the wondrous items category. But the one thing, too, is like scrolls, right? If you have a wizard in your party, he does not want that scroll used.
That's correct. And we've had times in our games where a wizard holds on to a scroll because it's like, well, I can use this at any given time, but if I wait till I'm high enough level to actually be able to put this in my book, I can put this in my book and be able to cast this whenever. Right,
I can always have access to that spell.
And there's been times where it's been a game changer because someone chose to use something, or we could have had a game changer if someone would have used it. So
yeah, well, I mean, there is the story that we've told numerous times, but some of you guys probably haven't watched all of our videos, so you might not know the time when Ryan's character, and I believe it was still AD&D, or we had just switched to third edition. Well, AD&D is second edition. Yeah. So it was like right towards our tail end, the second edition, very beginning of third edition. And I think it was third edition because you had to make a caster check in order to use a scroll of a spell higher level than you could cast. And he was a fighter wizard half elf, and it was a spell of flesh to stone. And there was a monster that the party was really having a hard time with, and Ted was super cocky to it, so it was going to obliterate his character.
I don't know how cocky I was to it, but I knew, based off of average damage from how much of a breath weapon it could do, that if it turned its entire attention to me, there was no way my character was going to survive. Average damage would put me into death. And I was like, all right, I'm done.
It was a Pyro Hydra with a couple of...
I thought it was a Pyro Hydra.
Pyro?
Yeah,
I think it was Pyro Hydra. With a couple templates on it. Like, one of them may have been half Fiend or half Demon, whatever the template was back in third edition. Maybe not half Dragon. Don't quite remember. But, Ted, this thing was, like, looming over the wall of the city, and Ted was on the wall, mouthing off to it, being all heroic-like. And it got the attention of all 12 of its heads. And it was just going to breathe on him. And that's when Ryan's character pulls out the scroll and... makes his caster level check. He needed a really high level. He needed a decent roll too to do it. And he pulls it off. And I'm like, whatever, guys. The thing needs like a 4 or higher on this saving throw. And this is before I was like rolling dice in front of everybody all the time. And I was real cocky and just being a prick. And I drop it in the center of the table and rolled a 3. And the thing literally, petrifies and turns to stone with the wisps of flames coming out of all 12 of his mouth as it's getting ready to bear down on Ted's elven fighter cleric character and incinerate him, and it saved the day. So that's like a perfect example of like a character have to make the decision whether or not to use that consumable or not, and it totally changed the game. Might have saved the character's life.
Oh, I absolutely, to this day, I will always say it did, because it was like another initiative ticked down or whatnot before you were going to go. And like I said, unless you roll really, really shitty, I had no chance.
So I believe the commenter had asked in our video about concentration, and that's when I brought up, well, these guys had found a bunch of crystals and they haven't really done anything with them yet. And, I had decided that each one radiated a school of magic, and if you used it as a spell component, a consumable spell component, then what would happen would that component would actually hold the concentration for that spell. So it would essentially give you one extra concentration, or I guess, for as many of the components as you have for the different schools, you could keep using them and just blow through them,
Right?
if you wanted to. So that was my idea for doing that, and also I wanted to see what would happen, right? So the idea is to add it as a consumable, and then I get to test it out in gameplay and see if it busts the game or not. And that is like the beauty of using consumables. Even if it's an ability you want to add to your game, a class ability, a racial ability, whatever, if you introduce it first as a consumable, you don't even have to tell your players that you're playtesting it if you don't want to, or you can. It's up to you. But you're going to you can see the effects of it in your game right away. And it's going to happen and it's going to go away. And you can kind of scale that a little bit too and be like, all right, well, I tested it out once or twice. I'll add more of those magic items into the game for the players to test those things out some more. And and then from there you can go, all right, well, now I want to go to the next level of this, and maybe I will tell them it's a play test and I'm checking out this ability, and if they have access to it, it might go away because we're trying to find out if it's a good fit for the game or not, or if it's going to break something.
Beyond the ability to play test, beyond the ability to have something that kind of comes and goes, consumables are just great treasure items, and if you make it a habit of always being able to find some in your game, it's going to give the players a sense of real magic in the world without actually having anything that's completely lasting. With the current Alchemist playtest that's out there, they have a lot of the consumable stuff that was in editions previous, like Tanglefoot bags and flash bombs and whatever have you, and those are a good resource drain for players who are looking to have something extra in your in your wheelhouse, to be able to, like, okay, well, in this situation, I want to be able to do this because it's going to be better than making my one attack. And players, once you get to a certain level, it's like, well, what do I do with my gold? So if you've got a resource to being able to purchase these things that kind of come and go, it's a good way to still reward them and not have to be like, well, now I've got all this money, what do I do with it?
Yeah, I was actually thinking that too. Like, if you're going to go down the route of the magic shop, right? And it really much became a part of, I think, 3rd edition and Pathfinder, where you just literally need to have certain things in order for your character to stay on par with the game. So it kind of got incorporated in. But like the middle ground for that is kind of the consumables, where you can control like the supply and demand and how much of it comes into your game. But then when they have the extra gold and you want them to be able to spend it, they can. Or this session, the cleric didn't show up, and like, all right, well, I'm going to let you guys buy potions of healing, which I've done that in the past. So there's ways to use consumables to kind of like moderate what's available in the game without just saying no to stuff.
Right, and if you have an alchemist that's an NPC that the party is familiar with, you've got somebody who's going to be a little off, little weird, that you can be able to role play with. And then anytime you have a situation where the party is needing a particular resource and that player is not in existence or not showing up to the game that night, you can be like, well, is there a potion that fills that thing that I need? A potion of invisibility, a potion of healing. There's the potions that are going to make your weapons better. Now, you don't have to do the oil of sharpness that makes it a +3/+3 weapon, but you could make it be a magic weapon, make it be a +1, so that you've got the ability to, all right, well, now I can hit things, and I hit a little bit harder and hit a little bit easier, and it's a way of constantly allowing that gold to drain while solving a problem at the same time.
I believe it was Ryan in one of his games. He had introduced an NPC. I believe it was Crazy Jamal.
Yeah.
That would just show up random places with his cart, and he would sell, a bunch of junk, and some of it would be magic, and a lot of it wouldn't. And that would be another way. Like, say you don't want a full-on magic shop, But you could have this magic merchant that kind of just shows up, comes and goes, and then it gives you even greater control as the DM as to when that stuff comes in the game, because like the store will be there and sometimes it won't. And it could also be like, oh, we need a thing. Where is so and so? And they could like go looking for him. I mean, that would be like kind of a pitfall, because yeah, it might be an adventure you didn't plan, but hey, that's Dungeons and Dragons for you.
Yeah, sometimes your players are going to throw you for a loop and be like, hey, you know, they said they were going to do this, but they lied. They're going to go do something else. And these guys have done it to me recently.
Yes, we have them. And, you know, it's part of being a dungeon master. You're just going to have to deal with it. But again, like we said, it's just a cool way to put in, you know, the magic store, but on your terms and not whenever the players feel like they want to do it. So I would try that out. You know, magic arrows or any kind of ammunition's always cool. That way, I had introduced that into my game. Anthony's Goblo wanted a weapon upgrade, and he's like, "What are we going to do?" He finds this tinker who makes not necessarily magic items, but bolts with special abilities, and some of them are like, you know, they duplicate certain spells or alchemist fire, things like that. Just cool, fun things for him to use. And then, you know, even throw in like a bunch of ones that are random and he doesn't really know what they're going to do when he uses them.
Now, every item that's in your Dungeon Master's Guide, you've got all these things that are permanent magic items. Now, there's nothing to say that you can say, you know what, I got a figurine of wondrous power. But you know what? It only functions once. Or, all right, you got armor of invulnerability here. Well, what if you just had an oil of invulnerability, and for a combat, you pour it on your armor, and it grants you those qualities. So anything in the book you could honestly do, you know, have be a consumable thing and allow you to test it out. And if someone's like, oh, I really like that, now I need to find the regular version, so I'm not.
Well, you know, going with your armor and vulnerability, you know, what if they found the magic suit of armor and it had an activation feature upon it? But after they activated it and that's when they find out there's a duration. If they don't do a lot of research or whatever, they find there's a duration, and now it's just a nice suit of armor.
Right.
And, you know, it's not even magic anymore. Or, you know, or now it's just a mundane, well, not mundane, but a +1 magic suit of magic armor. You could definitely do things like that. You know, the idea of, you know, flaming arrows that are, you know, you find a quiver full of 12 arrows, and each one is basically equivalent to a flame tongue. It'd be a lot of fun. The player would enjoy it, but
I got 12 shots, and it's going to do 2d6 extra damage. But once those 12 shots are gone, those 12 shots are gone.
Yeah, when am I going to use it? You know, or other fun things. I think ammunition is also like just a great place to do it.
Yeah.
What if you found a pouch full of sling stones that, you know, when they hit, they cast, you know, Thunder Wave or something like that. You know,
I was thinking crazier and going Fireball, but you know.
Well, you could do that. We already did Flame. I figured I'd go in a different direction.
I'm thinking fire.
It's all about the fire. But the question is, guys, what are you going to do in your game? What have you done in your game? What kind of a resources, consumables for your players? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
Well, speaking of resources, you can use all the awesome resources over on nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.